Hello, hello, hello. 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 All right, cool. Hello. Okay, yeah, good. Bit echo. So, when I was trying to decide what I'm going to talk about. Hello. Yeah? Okay, good. So, I decided to go back in history, and for me it was fascinating to do that and to see how far we've come. The reason that I started in 2008 is because that's when the Software Craftsmanship gathering in Chicago in November 2008 started. So, and that's when the software Craftsmanship as a movement started. So the idea is to talk about this history, everything that happened since that gathering in Chicago until today, and then what is kind of where we would like craftsmanship to go moving forward in the future. So I was quite surprised to see that there's a lot of people that are not part of the software craftsmanship groups, but I also I've seen like a lot of familiar faces from the software craftsmanship communities in Europe. So welcome. So it's great to see you here. So before I would that work? Okay. Back. Right, okay. So although we started as a movement in 2008 in Chicago, so the ideas of software craftsmanship came from a little bit before. So in 1999 and 2001, two books were written. So The Pragmatic Programmer is one of my favorite books until today. Was the first book to start comparing our industry to a craft. And then Peter McBreen wrote a great book in 2001 to talk about software craftsmanship. And in there, like, what he was trying to say, because we were coming in the 90s, so for those of you that are old as me, would remember that in the 90s we had a lot of software factories. So there were loads of these kind of companies were trying to automate software development, creating software factories. And I think that in 2001 he was saying like, you know what, we are just not factory workers. And he decided to move from software engineering to kind of a more personal thing, and that's what craftsmanship is about. So in this book, he said, like, I prefer software craftsmanship as a metaphor, although Mesh will be talking about what the metaphor really is, and if it's a metaphor or not tomorrow. But the idea was that our profession is more personal, and that's why he chose craftsmanship as a word. And in this book, he also talks about, he laid down the foundation for our movement, because he was also promoting a better collaboration between us developers and the business and our clients. So he also said that we developers or craftspeople, we are not just hired hands, right? So we are actively engaging with our clients, and managing people like us should be a privilege, his words. So, and also like to become a craftsperson, there is a lot of dedication. So he emphasizes quite a lot in the amount of dedication that we need to put in order to become great professionals. So that was the ground work that was done. Unfortunately for us, this book was written in 2001. And in the same year, if that worked properly, would be great. It doesn't. So on the same year, we had Agile. So that happened in February 2001. So there were 17 people that went to a ski resort in Utah. And there were people like Uncle Bob and Martin Fowler and Andy Hunt, David Thomas, the guys that wrote actually The Pragmatic Programmer, Ken Schwaber, Jeff Sutherland, that are creators of Scrum, and quite a few other very interesting, Kent Beck and Ron Jeffries, that are from the Extreme Programming. So a lot of these smart people, that they were also looking for better ways to deliver software. So they said, well, our industry is, it's not that it's broken, but it's not as good as it could have been. So they came up representing different methodologies, like extreme programming, Scrum, DSDM, adaptive software development, Crystal, feature-driven development. So all these different methodologies that at their core, they were very similar, because what their core, they had a very short feedback loop. and an opportunity to keep learning, constantly learning and adapting. And what they've done in that gathering, they create an umbrella that today we call Agile. But Agile is a group of methodologies created by those people. What happened, because Agile was so massive and so important for our company, for our industry, that unfortunately the whole Software Craftsmanship that was born in the same year, that book was overshadowed by Agile. And that was not a bad thing, because I think that the influence that Agile had in our industry was massive, and is a massively positive influence. So, I forgot that this doesn't work. Yeah. So, the idea behind Agile was awesome, right? I personally love Agile methodologies. So, unfortunately, like what happened in the next years, so there was these, how can I say, everyone was very excited about Agile. And then companies started adopting those things. Because Agile has a big variety of methodologies, they go from a very process-based, like Scrum, that is a product development methodology, all the way to a very more technical, software-focused, like extreme programming. But the people at that time that were hiring, they were managers. They were like, say, like, we want to better our companies. So they focus more in what they know. That is more on the process side of Agile, which was good because they took their companies forward. Their companies are a better place today in the way that they work. But I think that there was a big focus on the process, and they kind of forgot about certain things, mainly on the technical side as well. There was also a few, how can I say, new professions, like Agile coaches and Scrum Masters and change agents that they were created. They helped a lot of these companies, but not all of them had a software background, and they were actually trying to help software companies. And that also, in certain places, didn't go so well. And then it happened, right? Because I was part, when I moved to the UK in 2004, I joined a consultancy company, and our job was to go to these companies and promote this Agile transformation. So I was part of many Agile transformations in my life. The problem was that because we were not focusing too much on the technical side, what happened was we kept creating the software the same way, but expecting different results. The only difference is that we could see the sheet piling up every 2 weeks instead of waiting 6 months to see the whole pile, right? So that was the biggest difference. So, but at least we were in a better place. At least we could visualize our problems, because that's another thing. Agile doesn't solve problems, it exposes the problems. So shortening your feedback loop is exactly that. It shortens your feedback loop, give you more information, expose your problems, and acting on that information is what may give you agility. So anyway, another thing that happens over the years, as more and more companies were adopting Agile, they were adopting the processes, but they were not really changing the mentality and the culture of their development teams. They were just asking them to work in a slightly different way. And most of the people promoting those changes, because they were not developers themselves, they struggled to connect with developers. So for the developers, they say, well, there's just another bunch of people with fancy titles telling me to work in a different way. So then another thing that happened was, like, although those companies adopted Agile methodologies, they didn't realize that they might happen to be a bank, they might happen to do banking or sell things online, but at their core, they are still a software company. So most of the companies today, they are a software company. Some of them just didn't realize that yet, but they are. So, and the reason that I say that, so, well, but it's a bit pretentious. Well, let's say, like, you take the CEOs, CTOs, and all the C-level people with the big visions, like, oh, we have these ideas to change the world, we are going to dominate the market, and blah, blah, blah. So they give these speeches every 6 months in the company, how well they are doing, how they're going to dominate the whole universe and stuff. But the truth is, their companies, their businesses will move just as fast as we can build software. So we dictate the business pace of the companies today. If we suck at delivering software, if we don't release very often, that's the pace of the business. And then, of course, no doubt, Agile is blamed for that, right? So, which is a shame, which is a real shame. So, in 2008, because that's where our history starts. So, in 2008, some of the people in that gathering, so mainly Uncle Bob, said like, we had a great idea in 2001, but the whole thing, like mainly XP, was forgotten. Right? The technical side of Agile was forgotten. So we need to rebalance that, because Agile is a good thing, but we are not happy with the current state of our industry. And that's what triggered the idea of bringing software craftsmanship, the idea of creating a new movement, focus on developers, not to replace Agile, but actually to complement Agile, to rebalance that power struggle. And then in 2008, November 2008, so that's been almost 9 years now, they came up with a new manifesto that builds on top of the Agile manifesto. So I don't think that developers, mainly like people like myself, I think that we were so frustrated to have something like Agile that was so, wow, this is massive, it's great, but it didn't work as we expected. And we were drawn to craftsmanship as a thing that's, oh, wow, you know what, we can start again. And I don't think that the manifesto is the most important thing. But it was like we were drawn to it because of the feeling of we want to do something. As developers, we want to move the businesses. We want to change things. We want to be more connected and provide value. We want to take ownership of our work. So I'll go through a little bit of the history of what happened since the movement. Because like when Peter McBreen wrote the book in 2001, the craftsmanship that he was talking about is very different from the craftsmanship that we talk today, because in 2001, there was not even Agile. So it was predating that. So the craftsmanship that we know today as a movement was a reaction to what happened to Agile. If Agile had implemented as it was originally intended with all the methodologies, I'm not sure if you would have craftsmanship today. I think that XP would have been enough, I think. So, but anyway, so I'll start the history like where, so since the 2008, in that gathering in Chicago, a few things happened. So in London, in 2009, there was the first software craftsmanship community conference in the world. And then in 2010, we started the London Software Craftsmanship Community. And then what happened was, for quite a few years, mainly from this 2009 and 2011, we kept doing that until today, right? But like in those 3 years, quite a few of us started traveling around Europe and try to spread those ideas, because we were excited and we wanted more people to be excited about it. And so we started traveling conference after conference, city after city, community after community. The local communities like Java, Ruby, every community is like, oh, there's this thing called craftsmanship, what do you think? So there were a few interesting events. So in 2009, there was the first code retreat in Europe. How many of you have been to a code retreat? Right, a few hands, cool. 1/3 probably. So this is an awesome thing. So there is a global day of code retreat coming in end of this year. So it was in Romania, the first one. I think Alex is there. So Alex was the responsible to bring Corey Haynes to Europe and run the first one in Romania. Then we had the Israeli software craftsmanship that was a LinkedIn group, actually, that was quite big. And then we had London, of course, and then we had Paris as well, starting in 2011. So those were quite significant things in our event. And then in 2011, where's Nicole? There we go. So Nicole and Andreas, they decided to create an event called Socrates in Germany, where they heard about, they came here to London, they spoke to a lot of other people in the craftsmanship world and said, like, we want to have an event, an Openspace event in a very nice countryside hotel in Germany to talk about software craftsmanship and spread that to the German community. I was very fortunate to have been invited by Nicole, and in that first Socrates, we discussed about software craftsmanship, and we shared what we were doing in the London community and in other places. There were some people from Chicago, there was Adi Oshine from Google as well that wrote the apprenticeship patterns, so there's a lot of very cool people. And what happening there was the Germans were very excited about it, and they also started their local communities, but that was kind of the start of the spread of the craftsmanship communities in Europe. Another major event that we had was in 2001, so 2011 actually was a great year for us. It was the year that we exploded, I think, as a movement. So we had the first global day of code retreat. So for those of you that don't know what a code retreat is a full day where we go to a place and we take the same exercise and we keep doing the same exercise for 45 minutes with different constraints, and then we delete the whole code and start over, delete the whole code and start over, but always change the techniques to solve the same problem, and rotating pairs. So this is a code retreat. It's a very intense day. And at some point, Corey Haynes, one of the guys that started with the idea, decided to do a global one. And this was one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen in any technical community. We had around 50 cities around the world with around 1,000 developers doing a code retreat exactly on the same day. And we tried to connect and talk to each other through video calls and stuff. And because of the time zone, so Corey flew to Australia. So he's from the US, and he facilitated the first code retreat in there. Then he flew through the Pacific to Hawaii to facilitate the last of the day while the sun was traveling. The Earth was traveling and spinning, right? So while the Earth was spinning, so the code retreats were coming to an end and coming to an end, and we were handing over. So it was absolutely awesome. In 2013, we were like 15 countries. We had craftsmanship communities in 15 countries, and we had 30 plus communities in Europe. And also, like we had like 79. So this data is from Meetup.com. So I know that the vast majority of craftsmanship communities around the world are on Meetup, so that's why I took it as a reference, but I know not all of them, but the vast majority. So we had, in 2013, 79 groups, 15,000 members in 49 cities and 26 countries, which means that like in very few years, like 3-4 years, we started spreading quite the idea. Developers got very excited in many different parts of the world. We also had like the people that signed that manifesto. So the Software Craftsmanship manifesto got a lot of developers excited about it, and we had in 2013 more than 11,000 people from all over the world saying what signing means, like saying I identify myself with this, right? So that's what it means. There was also like in 2014. We didn't have any, because the only book that we had was the craftsmanship book from Peter McBreen. We felt the need to write a book that would express what craftsmanship meant then, right? So from 2008 moving forward, what meant to be as a movement, and I decided to write this book. So the technical focus that we had as a community for the first few years were, by miles, the focus was extreme programming. Because that was the regional frustration. Because that's what we were missing from Agile. We wanted XP to be there. So we focused a lot. All our hands-on sessions, all our conferences, the main topic was test-driven development, pair programming, continuous integration, simple design, all the XP practices. That's how every new member, the more inexperienced people, the first thing that we would do, let's pair, let's test drive, let's figure out better ways of doing software. We also, one of the key things was the cross-pollination across communities, because software craftsmanship communities, they are normally the second community to everyone else. Normally people join their communities, for example, if they are currently working with Java, they join the Java community or the Scala or the Ruby. So people normally join their language-specific communities, and then they join craftsmanship. So it was important for us to make the software craftsmanship community very language agnostic and very inclusive, very open, because we wanted developers from all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of experiences to join, to learn and share. We also focused a lot in deliberate practice. So we believe that in order to get good at something, we need to practice, 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 practice. And that's what all the software craftsmanship events are about, are sharing ideas, but also practicing to write code. And we also focus a lot in micro design. That's what clean code, object calisthenics, and working baby steps and this kind of stuff. So that was the main focus of these years. So where are we now as a movement? So I think that it's growing very fast. So I think that the awareness of the software craftsmanship adoption is growing. So we have far more developers joining software craftsmanship communities, and also companies as well. So there's a lot of companies now that adopted Agile at some point in the past, and they are now talking about software craftsmanship and also trying to bring XP back. The London Software Craftsmanship started in 2010, and now, 7 years later, we have more than 4,000 members, and we organize more than 440, more than 440 events. We have a lot of hands-on events. I even heard some people say, "Oh, the craftsmanship people talk a lot." Well, they should come to the community and see how many of these events were actually hard coding and pairing and stuff. So that's where we are now in London, and London is currently the largest community in the world. In 2017, we are now, we went from 15,000 members to 131,000 with 288 meetup groups in 181 cities and 48 countries. So there was quite a significant growth in terms of compared to 2013. So if you see like the growth, we were in 15, now we are in 131,000, and there was a massive growth in all the meetup cities and stuff. As I said, it doesn't cater for every group, but this is a very good sample of data. In terms of, another thing that was very important for us was when they started Socrates in Germany. We loved the idea, and I said, wow, this is a great forum because it's an open space conference. It's an open space, it's a space for us from all over Europe that like coding, that are passionate about our profession, to meet. So, and to do this cross-pollination not only among our local communities, but also across countries as well. So quite a few countries decided to adopt or to create their own Socrates conference, which is a totally community-focused, non-profitable, always in a nice hotel in the countryside. And people go there on a Thursday afternoon, leave on Sunday, and we have like an immersion in software craftsmanship and coding and technical discussions. And now they are used as the meeting points for us throughout the year, right? So, and we have two other conferences that we call the sister conferences I take in Romania and Code Freeze in Finland. This one is awesome. It's like in Lapland, like in the winter in Finland with ice. It's awesome, right? So middle of nowhere. Right? So if you die, people will find you in 3,000 years' time. So I think that also the technical focus became much wider now. So before we were very TDD focused, like craftsmanship and XP were very tightly related. Now in the software craftsmanship communities, we have a far wider variety of topics that we discuss, right? From very technical topics to all the way to diversity and other things. So I think that it's a very cool thing that we are becoming more and more diverse. So there was also, I think that one of the things that I'm very, very proud is the amount of people that were helped, and that includes myself, by the software craftsmanship communities. It's a very welcoming community because it doesn't restrict you in which language, with background, or whatever other preference that you might have. It is a community of everyone. If you like software, you are welcome. And the amount of people willing to share and learn with each other and pairing and showing is massive. So there were some criticism on craftsmanship because of the name and all this kind of stuff. But I think that if you look back and look what we've done in terms of to help people all over the world, I think that was fascinating. I think that our industry in general, this is not specific for our craftsmanship community, but like for our industry in general, the technical community in general, what we do is mind-blowing, right? So very few professions have this kind of interaction and this kind of sharing that we do in our industry. So at least I'm not aware of any other community. So currently, so the largest craftsmanship community we have London with 4,000. The Berlin craftsmanship community is massive now, is almost 3,000. The software craftsmanship in Paris is about 2,500. And the Turkish one is also growing significantly now, so which is really cool because we are spreading. I think that another, how I'm doing for time. Okay, so another thing that was fascinating to see was what happened in Germany. So since Socrates 2011, the Germans loved it, right? Right, Nicole? So they said, wow, this is really cool, right? So they really identified themselves, and since the beginning, they were people that were excited to start their communities across the entire country, not only in Germany, but also now in Switzerland and Austria. So they have a massive, in terms of countries, Germany is by miles the country that has more software craftsmanship communities right now. So another thing that is very interesting is that craftsmanship is becoming mainstream. So how do we know that something is mainstream? I think that while we are in very local communities, it's very difficult to say, but for me, at least this is my view, when large organizations, the banks and all the other large organizations that are normally not so technically focused sometimes, like the people in the management, but they are now looking at craftsmanship and asking for it. So there's a lot of companies throughout Europe, in London, many of them, that they adopted Agile a while back. They went through the Agile hangover. They were a bit disappointed and said, okay, but what is missing? I said, well, there is a technical side that is missing. And they were mature enough to say, well, what do we need? We need extreme programming and we need the craftsmanship spirit. And we now have more and more, not only here, but I know France has a lot, I know that Romania has, so there's loads of other places where there's a big demand from companies to bring software craftsmanship into organizations. And what they really want, most of the time, is not only for people to help them to get better at delivering software, but most of the time, besides going from monolith to microservice, that everyone is doing that, right? Why not, right? So, but besides all the technical stuff or the architecture, they want to bring a culture of learning to the organization. And that shows that companies are getting more and more mature. And that's why they are looking at craftsmanship, because it's a community that is driven for sharing and learning. So this is all well and good. So I think that we've come a very long way over the years. And when we look, the growth that we had as a craftsmanship community is awesome, right? But we kind of still live in a bubble. Because when you are inside a bubble, you think that the world is huge, right? Because you are inside. But as soon as you are outside that bubble, you can see that maybe your bubble is not that big. So we do all of that, but then we say, what is the actual demographic of developers out there? What is the actual demographic of people that understand or cares about what we are doing here today? So being surrounded by like-minded people is fantastic, but it's also doesn't allow you to look very further, because like you start looking inwards when you are just surrounded by like-minded people. And in a way, although I'm very happy with everything that we've done as an industry up until now, when I look at the wider picture, I realize that we are still quite a tiny bubble in a slightly bigger bubble, but it's still a tiny bubble that is agile. But the only thing that I see now is that we are creating more and more small bubbles, right? So this is a good thing. But just to give you an idea what I'm talking about. So this is from meetup.com. First of all, we know that most of the developers out there are not in communities, right? So they're not part of technical communities, they're not part of user groups. So this is just within the user groups, which is a small subset of the whole developers population. I could not find the reliable data for the number of developers that we have in our industry today. So I found data that may say like 18 million, 22 million, all the way up to 40 million. So the only thing that I could find in quite a few places is that the population of developers is doubling every 5 years. That seems common, but again, I could not see the real data. It's just anecdotal. That's why I didn't put any source for this. But within the ones that are in communities, that is a small subset of the whole population, we have in Meetup groups. So what this represents is, Meetup, you create groups, and you can tag your Meetup with a few things that community identifies themselves with. So the communities that put software development as a tag, they have in total almost 9 million software engineers. There's not a single tag to Agile, so I took Agile Project Management. Agile project management is about 1 million and thing, 1.5 million. And then you have, like, I mixed a few, like, just to give an idea, because some people prefer, they are not in Agile, but they are in Scrum, right? So things like that. So I try to put some methodologies and things that people probably would look for. So Scrum is quite big, but if you look at craftsmanship, although I was talking about, oh, we had a massive growth and stuff, look at us compared to the population, and even within Agile world. So we are a tiny, tiny bubble. And even extreme programming, there is still a lot of work to be doing here. So I'm going to remove the population of whole developers and just compare within the Agile space, because otherwise you won't see craftsmanship, because it will be a massive developer thing and a flat line for craftsmanship. So in terms of members, so just with the Agile to craftsmanship, there is quite a big distinction. Just to give you an idea, Java community is normally quite popular. So I took the sample, I didn't put it in here, I should have. But for the Java community, we have around 1.1 million, which means that there are less people interested in Java than in Agile project management, which is quite interesting, because there was a massive growth in the Agile project management. And those people are helping software companies to get better, but they themselves are not interested in software. I wonder why things are not going so well for certain companies, right? So in terms of meetups, so Agile project management, around the world there are more than 3,000 meetups, while XP, 625, craftsmanship 288. Again, we are far away from making a significant change in our industry. We are definitely making a dent, there is no doubt, but it's still a dent, not like a massive change. So country-wise, we are doing better. Of course, there's just like 200 countries in the world, so it's easy to, right? So there is a, yeah, so this is not a good measure, but like in terms of cities around the world, things are not so bad, so at least the spread of craftsmanship is going quite nicely. So we have a few challenges currently as well. Mainly the large communities, and that includes London, and I know for sure that is a fact for other large communities, they are being a victim of their own success. So because of the growth, we lost some intimacy. In the early days of the community, and that happened to the Java community and other community, you had a lot of intimacy. We knew everyone, right? So it was easy to, throughout time, to talk to people and follow what they're doing and keep sharing ideas. Now, it's not the case anymore. So there is a need, and because of the growth and when we lost intimacy, the energy also drops. Because you're not just going there to see your friends anymore. It's like a lot of different people. So there is a need to reinvigorate. So this is one of the challenges. This is what we will try to do with LSCC soon, is to reinvigorate the community. Also, we have like the problem with the population of developers doubling every 5 years. It means that our industry is in a constant state of how can I say, inexperience. So this reflects on the communities, right? So and this is not, again, this is not only about the software craftsmanship community, this is every other community, but this is something that we need to take into consideration when we invigorate and make sure to create a space that everyone can learn and enjoy. So I think that it's important to remember what craftsmanship is. So from a personal side, is a mindset. Right? It's the way that we look at our careers. It's the way that we look at our professions. So it's about dedication and also to want to do things well just for the sake of it. It's just because we want to. Not because someone is telling us to do, it's because we want to do things well. That's, for me, on a personal side, is where craftsmanship fits. On a more professional side, I think that because we have this desire to do things well, this reflects on our professional side as well. So providing good services to our clients, and clients in here, I told like your employers, regardless if you are a permanent employee, a contractor, consultant, it doesn't really matter. Whoever is paying for our services, like, we should always be willing to do a good job, not because they pay us, but because of who we are, right? So This is very important. I think that this is a key message to the craftsmanship. If you want to be treated as a professional, you should start behaving like one. So we love complaining, right? Our managers are these, our companies are these, our colleagues are that, and blah, blah, blah. So everyone sucks, right? We are the only ones that know everything, and the whole world needs to change so that we are happy, right? So, but I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are hiring a service yourself, being from a dentist, from a lawyer, so you are paying from a builder, for whoever, right? So we pay a lot of professionals to do work for us, even to have our hair cut. Let's say that we go to these professionals, and then we say, look, I have this problem, I would like to pay you to solve my problem. And then these people turn back to us and say, I'm not sure if I can solve your problem, but would you like to pay me some training? Would you like to buy me a book? Would you like to send me to a conference? Would you like to pay for my education? Let's say that you are really messed up in your head, and you say, like, of course, Mr. Hairdresser or Mr. Solicitor or Doctor, I'm going to pay for your education. And then you go there and pay money from your own pocket, these professionals, to get education. And then they come back and charge you for the service. How does that sound? Don't we do the same? So don't we go to our companies and we criticize our companies because it's their obligation to buy us the book, to pay us the training course? Are we asking our employers that we had an agreement, say like, we need this service, to say, I can provide this service, Mr. Employer? Right, I will charge this amount of money for this service. Great. Oh, but by the way, there is a small caveat. You need to pay for your education for the rest of your life. Is this really being professional? So what I'm trying to say is, of course, that modern companies will invest in their employees. There's nothing wrong with that. They should. But is their obligation? I don't think so. Is it a bonus? Of course, massive. Say, well, but I don't have time out of the work. Sure, and neither all these other professionals that we pay. But they not having time extra work doesn't mean that I'm going to pay for their education. Right? So that's what I'm saying. So when we criticize our companies and say, oh, we want to be treated as a professional, I want you to have like more autonomy and blah, blah. Sure, what are you bringing to the table? That's another thing. Like, for example, when you are hired on the first year, you get a salary. So, okay, I will provide this service. That's the salary. And then after 1 year, you want a pay rise. Of course, right? Let's forget about the inflation. That's not important. So you get the readjustment, fine. But then you want a pay rise. And then the first question that you should ask yourself is say, what am I offering now that is more valuable than it was 1 year ago to justify the pay rise that I'm asking for? So if you're not offering anything else, why do you deserve? But then the employer can say, oh, you know what? You know my business at least. So you spent 1 year inside my company, so you know very well our business. So you're going to have the pay rise because replacing you, it will be not so easy. So this knowledge, company knowledge, has value. The problem is not the first pay rise, and not the first year. The problem is the second year, where the knowledge of the company is still the same. And now your technical knowledge, if you haven't done anything else, is 2 years old. Why do you deserve that? But we have this thing about the world needs to change because I deserve everything. So I think that we need to change that. So if you want to be professional, we need to start acting like one. So if you want to have more respect, provide more value. So this is very important. I think that the whole software craftsmanship spirit is about sharing and preparing the next generation. So it scares me when we have a massive growth in our industry of new people coming in. The demand is massive. Every single company that I'm aware of is hiring developers at the moment. It scares the hell out of me to see that we have a very immature industry. And it's our job to make sure that we can do something about it. So another thing that needs to change, although we criticize some agile people because they were focused on the practices or the methodologies, are we doing the same in the craftsmanship movement? Are we getting too attached to TDD or to pair programming or to certain practices? Right, so I think that we should not be attached to the practices. We should be attached to the value that we expect. So when we are working, what do I want to happen? What is the kind of feedback loop that I want? So how short do I want to make this feedback loop in many different areas? And then, so that's the value of applying practices. That's the end result. So then we work backwards. If I want to deliver software multiple times a day for an extended period of time, this is the goal, that's the value. What are the practices that will allow me to do that? And then we can choose our practices. So it's important for us moving forward to detach ourselves from XP. I absolutely love XP, all the practice. If you ask me today, what is the technical methodology, set of practices, set of values, XP has 5 values as well, that you like the most, I wouldn't even blink to respond extreme programming, not even blink. But do I want to be following those practices in 20 years' time? No, I think that we need to, craftsmanship is a mindset, XP has a lot of good practices, and we need to evolve those practices. So our job moving forward is to help to evolve those practices, evolve XP, but the mindset is independent because we can use those practices or any other practices when we see fit. So about the future, what I would like to see more on the craftsmanship communities, innovation. So I think that Rachel will talk a little bit about new extreme practices. I think that she's doing quite some work in terms of where is XP going, where we should move forward. So there are new things coming up, so I'll let Rachel talk about them tomorrow. But I think I would love to see that. I think I would love to see the craftsmanship community more, although I want to detach the craftsmanship is not XP, but I want to keep those communities very, very close. Right? So I would love us to be close and help XP to progress and to evolve as we also evolve. So, because those are the practices that we want. And so another thing that we need to move beyond the clean code, the naming a variable and the test-driven development, the baby steps, we need to go beyond to much bigger problems. It's already happening, but not as much. Another thing is we need to learn how to drive technical change. In quite a few of the craftsmanship events, I still have a sense of being into a developers anonymous kind of event where everyone's complaining about their companies, managers, and colleagues and stuff. Most of the time that we are complaining about our companies is also our failure because we are not being able. It's like, why these people don't see what would be better for us and we should adopt these techniques and these practices and they cannot see that, they're all stupid. Well, if you're complaining time and time again, maybe we need to develop a better way to drive those technical changes. But I think we fail because we are selling the practices and not the values. We are very bad at communicating because we are trying to sell our preferences with opinions without thinking what is the real benefit from the business. And I think that's what we need to get better at. Right? So to learn how to drive technical change in a more professional manner where the technical change that we are providing will actually cause an impact in the business side. So I would love to see a better collaboration with Agile and Lean processes. I think that we distanced ourselves from those two groups, and I think that we should be back together. I think that it's important. We need each other. That's how I feel. So, and I would also like to see more formal books. There are a lot of amazing books. They're not craftsmanship specific, but they're read by the wider community, like Clean Code. There's Michael Feathers is there with the Working Effectively with Legacy Codes. There's the Growing Object-Oriented Software Guided by Test by Steve Freeman and Nat Price. The Nat is there. So there's a lot of great books that we consider from our community, like, although they're not, but like we love them. I would love to see more of those books coming up. So from the craftsmanship communities themselves, going further, I would love to find a way, I don't have the answers, this is a thing that we've been debating, to provide a space for different skills, levels and interests. Most importantly, because of the new generation constantly joining our industry, we should keep doing the foundation work with XP practices. I think that they should all be the first practice that people learn should be on the XP side and then broaden things. So, do we need smaller communities inside a wider community? I'm not sure. So, but I would love, there are many other areas. I think Paul, where's Paul So Paul will be talking a little bit more about the mobile side, but I would love to see craftsmanship moving towards other areas as well, as mobile and front-end and automation, databases and everything else. So I think that we need the same spirit and mindset on those areas. So this is a thing that I've been talking quite a lot recently. I think that we create this amazing community in Europe and now quite worldwide. But although we see each other quite often, multiple times per year, what we are not doing is to collaborate in the work. Not in terms of working for each other's company or recommending clients. That's not what I'm saying. It's innovations. It's sharing like what we are interested. Kind of imagine the academics when they write papers and they work with other academics around the world. That's what I would love to see more in our community, is a stronger integration among people when developing new ideas. Career ownership, I would love to see more and more people taking ownership of their careers. So deciding what to learn, when to learn. When looking for jobs, be careful not to go to places where your passion will be beaten out of you, right? So we need to find companies that either they are IT companies or they see IT as a strategic part of their business. But if a company sees IT as a cost center, I'm not sure that it will be a good environment for people like us. So I think that I told a little bit about this, so we need to stop asking people to do things for us. Instead, we should take ownership of our careers and do the things for ourselves in terms of learning and evolving and things. So we should get closer to business, and that's, again, me going back to Agile and Lean. I think that we've been very focused as a community in the technical practices, in the coding, but we should go a little bit wider now. We should kind of try to help those companies to run their business. Because, again, if they are considered technical companies, software companies, we should be the ones advising them. But for that, we need to learn how a business is run. So, because a lot of developers don't have the sensibility, or they don't really understand the impacts of the business and what certain changes will cause. So I think that we need to develop a better appreciation in how businesses are run. I would love to see more software craftsmanship companies that I call. I don't have a better name for it, but are companies that have developers at the center, right? So that they use. You know that there is a difference between core functions and support functions. So core functions normally are the functions where they bring money. They are the core of the business. And then there are support functions, right? So they are there to enable the core function to do its job. Quite a few companies have that the other way around. So the consultant or the technical people are controlled by the support functions. Support functions decide how the companies run, and the technical people are just sent to do whatever work. So that is messed up, right? So we should flip that. So I would like to see more companies where they are run by developers, and they have support functions to support their work. And of course, financial transparency, all this kind of good stuff. So again, part of these companies, the culture of learning is in its DNA. It's not because of the companies is doing a lot. Well, the companies should do, but because of the type of people that they have. Providing best value for their clients, of course, well, you can say, oh, this is obvious. Well, but not because the company wants to, it's because of who we are. So the company doesn't need to make a big effort for that to happen because people want to do that. And what I want to see more and more are apprenticeship programs within companies. I think there are at least 2 or 3 companies in London that have apprenticeship programs, and I would love to see that more and more happening, because that's one of the best ways for us to cater for the new people joining our industry and preparing them. I think that in order to really achieve business excellence, craftsmanship won't solve all the problems the same way that Agile or Lean. I think that we need the short feedback loop. We need people with the same mindset across the entire organization, craftsmanship around the technical side and the teams, Agile across departments or something like that, and Lean across the whole organization. I think that we, at some point, when craftsmanship was born, there was a big friction between craftsmanship and Agile, which was not healthy for anyone. And then there was friction between Agile and Lean as well. They were also going to conference, one criticizing the other, and Kanban versus Scrum and all this kind of shit. So, And now I think that we are even worse, because at least we were talking to each other, even criticizing each other, it was okay. But now we don't even talk to each other. Right? So yeah, Agile is there, Lean is there, Craftsmanship is there, and I think that's a shame. I think that if you want to provide a real value for organizations, we need the three. So can we help our industry to mature when the number of developers around the world is doubling every year? I think we can. So the craftsmanship world is doubling every year and a half. So much faster than the population of developers doubling. And I think that if companies and people, individuals, do more to help the new people joining our industry, mentoring them, creating an environment in their organization so these people can learn and flourish, we have a chance. But if we just don't do anything, well, I will be retired, but my kids won't. And we will be in a very bad place. So, and one thing that we should not lose track is, for me, the biggest value, the thing that I like the most in the craftsmanship world is being a community of professionals. I think that this is what is uniting us across the globe, is the common interest that we have. There was a lot of focus on the very, very tiny things that we differ from each other. I think that we should get back and focus in everything that unites us, and those are the vast majority of the things, and mainly the passion for our craft. So I hope that you enjoyed this conference. There's a lot of interesting people, not only giving talks, but also in the audience. I know quite a few of you. So take the opportunity to talk to each other, to tell others what you are doing, what you are interested. Share what you are doing in your organizations, or see if you can make some good connections and learn other things, or even help other people. So I hope that you have a great conference. So yeah, thank you very much.